So tonight we are going to talk about physician-assisted suicide. We're going to go through several of the ailments that maybe can get you there. I'm going to give you a little history on assisted suicide or physician-assisted suicide in the United States and abroad. We're going to talk about some of the disease states that you may encounter that maybe you would then choose to have a physician's assisted suicide. I'm also going to talk to you about Brittany Maynard and her decision to go through with physician's assisted suicide, and then kind of the difference between palliative care and physician assisted suicide. So first off, anybody who knows anything about physician-assisted suicide probably immediately thinks of Dr. Jack Kevorkian. Dr. Jack Kevorkian in the 1990s was a physician pathologist who studied death. He was fascinated by death, studied death, felt like there were ways that you could bring about death quicker for people, and then eventually he ended up actually going to jail for helping patients of his commit suicide. Most of his patients, they were already dying. They had diseases that were non-compatible with life. So he looked at it as a mercy. He didn't look at it as he was helping them die. He was helping them actually live the rest of their life. Briefly, in 1828, New York State passed the first laws regarding physician-assisted suicide. June 1997, our Supreme Court decided that it does not violate our Constitution in any way, and that made it a legal precedent for other states to then say, okay, we can do this, you can do this. There are only 6 states in America that allow it currently: Oregon, Washington State, Montana, Vermont, New Mexico, and California, although California is in the process of repealing that. And actually, Brittany Maynard's story, her family after her passing, is what caused California to go ahead and legalize it, if you will. According to assistedsuicide.org, you could also go to Canada, Colombia, England, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Switzerland. Switzerland actually was the first country to have any laws regarding assisted suicides, and those came about, I think, in the 1940s. People who may choose this route, obviously terminally ill patients. We're talking cancer, we're talking advanced Alzheimer's, dementia, although with those disease states, the mental capacity to kind of choose that becomes trickier as the disease progresses. Other life-altering diseases, Parkinson's, things where you are dying, you will die, and your body's functions, your motor functions, will eventually stop working properly, or your mental capacities will be debilitated severely. So a lot of people that would have disease states like that, they would choose terminally ill patients. They would choose physician-assisted suicide. Now we're going to look at Brittany's story. Brittany Maynard was 29 years old. According to her Compassion Choices YouTube video, she was diagnosed in January of 2014 with terminal brain cancer. She had a glioblastoma. Glioblastoma is a word that you never want to hear in reference to yourself. If you're told you have glioblastoma, essentially there's nothing that anybody's going to be able to do for you. They can, there are treatments that can prolong your life, but there's nothing that's going to get rid of it. So initially, Brittany was given a 1 to 2 year lifespan. She went and had a craniotomy where they debulked the tumor or excised some of it. They made it smaller. Her prognosis still looked okay. Again, 1 to 2 months lifespan. However, they quickly realized that the tumor grew, and pretty soon after her craniotomy, they realized that she was probably only facing months instead of a couple of years. she started asking her doctors questions. And as it turns out, doctors don't enjoy answering questions about death. Even though, that's something that they deal with regularly, they don't like discussing it. So everybody was kind of held back and reserved in speaking with her. I mean, she was 29 years old. She was newly married. She had a whole life ahead of her, or should have had a whole life ahead of her. And frankly, they weren't very open with her. So she started researching, and she realized that there were options for people like her, people that are going to die. She was going to die within the next couple of months. It wasn't a maybe, it wasn't an if, it was a when. And she realized that she didn't want to live however long she had left facing debilitating headaches and strokes and being in immense amounts of pain. Maybe not being able to recognize her mother, her husband. She wanted to do something about it. So she sat her family down and told them that she wanted to do an assisted suicide. Unfortunately, it wasn't legal where she lived in California at the time. So her and her husband moved to Oregon. And once she got there, she realized that she couldn't just go to the doctor and say, hey, this is what I want to do. According to her profile on Today.com, she realized that she had a lot of work to do still. She had to become a resident. She had to get a new license. She had to have physician statements saying that she had what she said she had. She had to have mental competency exams so she could go ahead and go through with the process. So over the course of the next couple months, she did all of these things. And her symptoms started getting worse. She kind of had it in the back of her mind that November 1st was kind of the date that she was looking towards. But then November 1st, she actually woke up and had one of the worst seizures that she'd had to date. It left her speech garbled. It left her unable to recognize her husband for quite a while. And she realized that this is definitely the day. So she spent the morning with her family, her friends, her husband, and then she took her medication and drifted off into sleep. And that was that. She remained in control. She wasn't trapped. She wasn't a prisoner in her own body. According to deathwithdignity.org, there are a handful of medications that people will be prescribed. There isn't a set recipe. There isn't a set format for doing it. Typically, it's a barbiturate, morphine. Sometimes they'll give you some blood pressure medications, something just to throw your body systems off enough. Most of the time they give you something that causes respiratory or cardiovascular distress. And you will just drift peacefully away. And that is a far better alternative than watching your loved one suffer or being in immense amounts of pain for possibly months and months at a time. So think about your loved ones. If you had somebody that was faced with a glioblastoma and you knew that there were no other options, and you knew that once it got to a certain point they probably wouldn't know who you were, they wouldn't be able to function, their motor functions would be gone. They wouldn't be able to use the bathroom on their own. They would have debilitating seizures and headaches. Nobody wants to live that way. Brittany didn't want to die, but she also didn't want to live trapped as a prisoner in her own body. She was dying already. She just made the decision in the end to do it before it got too bad, before it got to the point where she had no choices, where maybe she was hooked up to machines and monitors in a hospital. Nobody wants to end their life that way. You want to live until you have no other choice, and that's what Brittany did. So I want you to think about the fact that none of us want to die. Most people don't wake up today and say, hey, I think I might die today. You don't wake up wanting to die. When you're faced with an insurmountable decision, you come up with the best options that you can. I certainly would choose the same that Brittany did if I were able to, if I had that choice. And if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, this is just so you know that there are options out there. Nobody wants to think about such things, but you do have choices. You don't have to let the disease rob you of your last moments on earth. Does anybody have any questions?
Have you ever, or do you know anyone that would choose this as their, if they had a terminal illness, would choose this as their fate?
So, my friend is asking if I know anybody that has ever had to choose this or would choose this. Um, I don't know that I know anybody personally that would, other than maybe myself. Um, I can tell you that I definitely, if I were presented no other options, if I were definitely told we can slow it down, but we can't prevent this from happening, I would choose it in a heartbeat. My mom died of cancer at a very young age, and I wasn't old enough to know what she suffered, but I can look at photographs and tell that she suffered, and I don't want any part of that. I would rather have 1 month of fantastic, lively, loving, great life than 6 months of pain, misery, and suffering from myself and everybody around me. Thank you.